Welcome to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with Crystal Glossop about travelling the country. Crystal experienced camping in tents and in caravans as a youngster and had quite the opportunity to travel with her family as she grew up. As the mother of 4 children, she decided that it was time to travel again. Welcome to Forest.chat, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, Paul.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Crystal. Crystal, we're post-COVID and all over the place we've seen caravans. You can't get away from them. They're all over the place. What was the trip that you actually took your family on?
So we travelled around Australia back in 2011. We thought it was a perfect timing with the age of our children that they were, and my husband had long service leave, so we took the opportunity to travel around Australia.
And how long did you travel for?
So we took 8 months. We set off in February and arrived back home in October.
So that's a good amount of time that you're out there.
Yes, it was great. We managed to see quite a few of the different seasons and get all the different weather in. So we had some nice warm weather, and we even had some time in the snow as well over in Melbourne.
Wow. So how much planning went into this?
Quite a bit of planning went into it. First of all, we had to buy a vehicle that we were going to be travelling in. We needed to buy a caravan we were going to travel in that fitted our family, and we had to organise what we were doing with our house and in terms of keeping that and yet still paying for the mortgage as well while we travelled around.
Oh yeah, that's always a challenge to make all the things meet when you're maybe on holidays, but you're out there and you're doing irregular things.
Yes.
Yeah. So which way did you go?
So we went in a clockwise direction. So we headed up north in WA first of all. So we started in Perth, headed up north. We had a loose timetable we had a pretty casual plan, just knowing that we wanted to travel around Australia in the 8 months with just a few planned stops where we sort of needed to be at a certain time. And our first one really was Broome. We wanted to be there in April. That was where it was one of our daughter's birthday, and so my mum and dad were meeting us up there to join us for a little bit and celebrate. So that was our first stop, our first main where we needed to be. Other than that, we just took off on the road, not really knowing each morning where we were going to set up camp for the night. So that was quite different, waking up and just seeing where we ended up. And other than that, the only other stops we had planned was over in Cairns. We were set to be there in a certain time for Rodney's mum to come and visit us. So we picked her up from the airport and she stayed with us in the caravan as well for a little while. And then again, we were over in Sydney. My parents came over to join us again for a little bit more. But other than that, we had no set plans of where we would be.
So literally every day are you moving every day or just...
We didn't move every day. A lot of the time we were moving every day. A few times we stayed at different places for 2 nights, maybe 3 nights. I think in the whole 8 months we only stayed somewhere for a week twice. That was our first stop. I think it was in Denham. We were there for a week to start off with, as we were getting settled into it all and finding our way a bit. And the other one was over in Sydney, where we based while my parents were with us. But we had pretty bad weather when we were there, and it was very wet and rained out, so that was not much happened when we were over in Sydney at that spot. But apart from that, we were pretty much on the go all the time. It was such a big country and there's so much to see, so we kept on the move pretty much all the time.
Yeah, it definitely is a big country. Having driven across the Nullarbor once or
Yes,
twice,
yeah.
you get to understand the slow-moving scenery. You're just you might be doing the speed limit, but that's not very fast compared to.
There were many times as well we were driving and obviously not knowing where we would go. So many times we would set up camp at the rest areas, and we found some really amazing rest areas along the way. Others were more just along the side of the road, but we would just stop, set up and cook dinner at the side of the road and then head to sleep. So, yeah.
Excellent. So what did a typical day look like?
Oh, I don't know if there were many typical days because they were all so different and so different in adventure. Yeah, basically we'd get up and have our breakfast and then it would be time to pack up. So we travelled in a Land Cruiser and we had a Jayco Outback Expander that we travelled in, so the beds pull out both sides. So with the 4 young children at the time, our youngest when we set off was 20 months old and our eldest was 9. And we did take a lot of stuff with us. So basically to get into our caravan we had to pull a fair bit out before we could hop in and then set the beds up for that. So it was climbing over quite a bit of stuff sometimes as well. Yeah, so we would have to pack that up and get back on the road, obviously depending on where we were, what we were doing for the day, sightseeing. We went on a lot of walks. We had a little backpack for our youngest to go in, and we would take it in turns, my husband and I, as to who was carrying her for the day. But the other children soon became great bushwalkers and quite adventurous on the different tracks we followed. Yeah, but we would always make sure we would stop and check out what there was at a different location, at a different destination. When we were over on the Gold Coast side, we did the theme parks. Down in Tasmania, we explored Platypus World and some different theme parks that there are all around. We went skiing when we were in Melbourne, went up to Falls Creek and had a ski trip. So that was one of our highlights, I would say. Yeah, there was all sorts of different adventures. Swimming in the rivers with the freshwater crocodiles and a bit of everything, really.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like a real adventure.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you all made it back.
Yeah. Well, we started it with a bang to start with because our first night we actually went and stayed at York Caravan Park, and we set off the day before my birthday, and Rodney had us booked in to do a skydive, which I didn't know about until only 2 days beforehand it was. So the first full day of our adventure, Rodney and I were skydiving on my birthday with the 4 children down on the ground. Our family and friends had come to see us off, so they were there. And I know my mum was very scared seeing us up in the air and knowing she was down on the ground with our 4 children. And yeah, so that started we called it our trip around Australia. We named it Our Big Adventure. So that was the start of our big adventure. Yes, starting it off with a skydive and a birthday lunch at the local pub there. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's quite amazing. That would be a big adventure.
Yeah.
So, Crystal, what does it take you to organise a trip for your family around the country?
Yeah, there was a fair bit of organising to do. First of all, I suppose organising what car and caravan we were going to be using, so we had to sort that out and buy one of those. Organising what was going to be happening with our house while we were away. We managed to pack up a lot of our personal belongings and just store that in our shed on our property, and then we rented out our fully furnished house for someone, so that was there and we knew we had that to come back to. We had to organise what type of schooling we were going to be doing with the children, whether we were homeschooling or going through distance education. It takes a lot of patience when you're travelling in a car with 4 young children, especially one under 2, being in a car seat for quite a long time, travelling for quite a few hours. So with the schooling side of things, we went with distance education, which is through SIDE, which is a great program we found. They send you a lot of their work and the children have different subjects to do. So we had, our son was in year 4 when we travelled and our daughter was in year 2 and then one in kindergarten as well. So she didn't have too much work that she needed to do. It was mainly the one in year 2 and year 4. And then we just gave them a baseline of where we would be at certain times. So they would send packages to the post office. So we knew when we'd be in Broome by a certain month. So they would send a package up there and we'll just collect that from the local post office. And then they'd work on that. When the children had finished their work, we could just send that from any post office to the main head office down here in Perth. And that's how they did their schooling. They thought it was really good. We could even get books out from the SIDE library and they would send that to the post offices as well, and we'll just collect that as we drove past. So we sort of would give them a town, a month away type thing, and that's where they would post it and we would collect it there. And that's how they did it. A lot of the time we would do their schoolwork when we were travelling in the car, because the last thing I thought the children needed to do after sitting down, being in the car for a couple of hours driving each day, was when we would get somewhere and set up to be sitting down and doing schoolwork.
I could see they'd be really keen to be sitting there doing schoolwork when they've just arrived at some new place to explore.
Obviously being year 2 and year 4, it wasn't too full on. A lot of it was fun things to do, just reading and a little bit of work. But it was there were quite different activities for them to do. I do remember one of the main ones we did was actually when we were up in Carragini camping up there, and my daughter, for her little science experiment type thing, had to put a little plate down on the floor with a bit of sugar in it and wait and see how long it took for the ants to arrive and come to that. So it was, a lot of fun, lots of fun. And then there was a few times when they had to record a little poem they had written, and then we would send that through to their teacher and they would mark it that way. So there's all different sessions that they would do as well. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, so a lot of the time I would sit in the back seat with one of them and do their work as we were going along in the car, or I would, also be there entertaining the nearly 2-year-old as well, which we all got good at doing.
Amazing just how much attention and how much energy they've gotten to try and strap them in.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. But no, she was good. We had a car full of different activities for her, so different puzzles, or we did enjoy listening to some, they had stories on CDs when we travelled then, not like the audio books and the headphones that's available now. So it's quite different. Or, the drink bottles, making them up as shakers. She enjoyed those. So, yeah, keeping her occupied that way.
That would have taken a little bit of creativity along the way?
Yes, just seeing what would keep her happy day after day in the car seat. So, yeah, trying to keep her occupied.
So there's a lot goes on in the car while you're driving from here to there, and to get to the car took quite a lot as well. So we've heard about what it takes. After the break, we'll talk about what it means. We've talked about what it takes. Now we'll talk about what does it mean. Crystal, what did doing the trip with your family mean for you, your family, or the community?
Okay, to me it meant that I got to spend a lot of time with my family, exploring the country, having new experiences and making lots of wonderful memories, and providing my family with a once-in-a-lifetime, really, opportunity. We did do lots of little camping trips along the way. We always have enjoyed travelling, but this was something that we could do where we just packed up and we were on the road and going and doing it for such a long time. So it was an amazing opportunity and something that we really enjoyed doing. And as we were doing it, meeting so many other adventurous people and seeing them on their travels. Loved listening to different people on their travels, and we just found it something that we really loved. And I mean, we were fortunate that we were able to take 8 months to do it, but would love to be able to have much longer, so that we could spend more time to explore our wonderful country.
Did you see how it was changing your children as you went along?
So they had the opportunity to explore, and hopefully give them a sense of adventure and travel as well, opening their eyes up to all the different amazing opportunities that are out there for people and the different adventures that you could have, not just the day-to-day of being at home. Children go off to school, mum and dad go off to work, or, they're home. So just a different way of living, and by going around and seeing other people's lifestyles as well. So it's just being an eye-opening adventure for them.
They would have seen things that they never would have seen. And what did it mean for other people in the community?
It was great to see. We were travelling around a fair bit, but going around to different areas and campsites, it was great to interact with other people and talk to them about their travels. Often we would be at place, and when we were chatting with them, they would let us know of somewhere where they've just stayed and often give great suggestions as to somewhere we could try. We were heading in that direction.
So there's a whole community out on the road, and they're interacting with each other along the way?
Yeah, that's what we found. There was a few other families that we saw out and about on their travels, which was always good to catch up and chat with them about. There was people who that is their lifestyle. We had a great interaction with this man, and he was with us down at Flinders River where we caught a barramundi. I know that was one of Rodney's highlights, catching his barramundi. And so that was really good. He showed us how to do that and then helped us cook it up and eat it. So that was a great experience to share with someone else as well. And that was his lifestyle, how he just always lived. And then, there were the grey nomads that were travelling around as well, which was also good to hear their stories. Really inspiring and interesting listening to people's different stories.
Yeah, people get on the road for all sorts of reasons, don't they?
Yeah.
And were there some highlights of the trip?
Oh, there's so many highlights. Trying to think. We did really enjoy our time in at Falls Creek in the snow. So that was our children's first experience with the snow, and that was really good to try out skiing. We really enjoyed our travel across to Tasmania. So we put the car and the caravan on the Spirit of Tasmania and sailed across. And then we had 3 weeks travelling around Tasmania. So that was really good. We were there at a lovely time. I loved it. We were there in the springtime, so there was all the daffodils out and the little lambs that we could see in the paddocks there. So I really enjoyed that time. But other than that, it was just a bit of everything. All the walks we went on and the landscapes that we saw. I mean, Karajini is such a magical spot, and we went to all the different walks there and swimming in the different water holes and seeing the waterfalls. Yeah, just such an amazing country that it is hard to pick out a favourite spot. It was nice to find the little unknown places. I know some where someone had told us about was Lawn Hill, and that was a very lovely spot. That was a river there as well, and that's where we sort of swam with the freshwater crocodiles. And just to see that the children were brave enough to go in the water knowing that there were crocodiles in there, swam across to a little island in the middle and then swimming back across. So, yeah, just a great trip full of lots of experiences.
Yeah, it sounds like it. They're swimming with the crocodiles and all that sort of thing. Did you see them, or were they?
Not there, but I do know I was walking. There was a section when I was walking back with, I think, the 2 youngest, and Rodney was in the water with the others, and then he pretended he'd been taken by a crocodile as he's going underwater. So, yeah, having a bit of fun with it as well. Yeah.
So it sounds like going on a trip can mean a lot to both to you and to your family, and you also had family travelling to meet you at different places as well.
Yeah.
So that's a really amazing thing to actually go through and achieve. Now that we've had a look at that meaning of the trip, let's have a break, and when we come back, we'll look at how you did it. We've heard how much meaning there is in doing a trip around the country with your family. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Crystal, how did you go about preparing to and getting on the road for your trip?
Okay, so first off, it was buying a vehicle. So we found a Land Cruiser that we were after, and we had that fitted out and ready. So we had that one. And then we found which caravan we wanted to use. We made sure we had one with a toilet and a shower so that we could be off-road and set up in rest areas and didn't have to rely on booking in at caravan parks or campsites. And so we could do those side of the road stops. Our caravan that we got wasn't an off-road, so we did have help in modifying that to make it an off-road camper, and we added some storage boxes on that just to make sure we had enough room to take everything that we needed. We did a few little trips in it first of all just to test it out, make sure everything was okay. And setting up, organising the house and having someone in there for while we were away as well. I had to organise, which sort of all fell into place really. So that made things easy with that. And then we were ready to go. It did take us probably maybe the first 2 weeks of our trip to work out what was working and what wasn't. When we started, we were taking some bikes with us. So we had a bike rack on the back of our caravan, but being the expander where the beds come out at the ends, to be able to open up the beds each night, we had to take off the bike rack. After the first 2 nights, we realised we didn't want to be doing that every night. So the second night we were away, we were actually staying at Rodney's uncle's farm. So we were able to leave the bike rack and the bikes at his farm there. And we made that decision to keep those behind, which I think was the way to go, because that was quite a big job taking that on and off each time. And then by the time we got to Geraldton, we realised we had a bit too much stuff. We had an extra cupboard in there which had to be pulled out for us to even be able to step into the caravan, and we had taken an inflatable kayak as well, which we thought, that's just too much stuff, we can't take everything, so we left that behind. And when we were in Geraldton, we were staying with friends out the front of their place, so we managed to leave some things behind with them as well. So, and then by that stage we thought, I think we're right now, we can keep going. So we knew the first part of our trip was in the hot weather, so we only really needed summer clothes. We had a little bit of warmer clothes as well for the evenings and things, but mainly it was the summer clothing. And then we did know that my mum and dad were meeting us over east when it was going to be the cooler weather. So we had a couple of suitcases packed up ready with our winter clothing. And so when they came over to meet us there, they brought over our warm clothing for us, just so we didn't have to have that in the caravan the whole time. So we found that worked really well in having that organised. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that one about the clothing is very important, especially when you've got so many people on board.
Yeah.
That everybody needed to be warm for winter as well.
Yeah.
So very, very good thinking there to do that. Also the whole process of, okay, you got everything ready and you thought you were good to go, and then you get on the way and you find that, you need to make adjustments.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, just what I mean, it would have been nice to have the bikes there for the children to have a bit of an explore, but it was just going to be too much. And yeah.
Yeah, just got to make a decision along the way.
Yeah.
When Caroline and I went for our trip across the country, we repacked the car like 3 or 4 times on the way across. We didn't have too many options to leave things behind. But, you had a much bigger scenario and fortunately you did have that option. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it did work well that we were able to leave some stuff behind that we didn't need.
It's quite a big undertaking to gather the family together, leave behind a whole lot of things that you've actually collected along the way and jump into a vehicle and get going around the country. That's quite an amazing process to go through and highly recommended.
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend it to anyone if they have the chance to do it. I know we're looking forward to hopefully one day doing it again and can't wait until we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming on Forest.chat, Crystal. It's been great to have you here. And from all Forest.chat listeners, we wish you all the best in your future endeavours.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It's been great chatting with you.
It has been great having you on the podcast, Crystal. Thank you. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we talked with Crystal Glossop about the big adventure. Remember, there are 4 ways you can get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. Listen to the published episodes at forest.chat/episodes. Book an interview at forest.chat/interview. Book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next interview. Until next time, enjoy making it happen.